Are we starting now?
Yes.
Oh, this is it.
This is it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Jose McLaughlin. Jose has had a very interesting career. He's done a lot of different things, from being a musician to an educator and everything in between, I'd imagine.
Quite a few other things, yeah.
So, Jose, you've obviously got a bit of an English accent. I would imagine you started life out in the great old UK.
Liverpool, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the days of...
Nearly 77 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which would put you
post-war baby.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which would put you very close to being in the same era as the Beatles.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, just a couple of years behind them.
Ah.
Yeah.
Did you get to see them play live?
Oh, yeah.
That would have been a different experience back then, I'd imagine, to what life is like now.
The first time I got to see the Beatles was I was only about 13 or 14, I think. And they were playing, they weren't well known then, they were just another Liverpool group, you know.
Okay.
But there used to be a venue round the corner from where I lived in Liverpool called the Aintree Institute. It's not easy to say. And I used to go past there on my way to school all the time. And I would see vans parked outside and people lugging in all this equipment, and it just got my attention, you know. So I thought, I've got to get in there somehow and just see what's going on. So I think this was about late 1961. And I managed one night, very bravely, I managed to sneak in. There were a bunch of people going in, and I kind of just joined the crowd.
So how old were you then?
About 13. And managed to join this crowd of people that were going in, and they didn't take any... I looked older than what I was. So anyway, I managed to sneak in. And there I am inside the Aintree Institute, and I could see the stage, and there was heaps of people there. And the band came on, and I went, wow, these guys are great. You know, it was the Beatles.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how old would they have been?
In 61? John would have been 21. Paul would have been 20. George would have been 18 or 19. And the original drummer, Pete Best, was on drums.
Pete Best was on drums.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
G'day everyone. Just a short interruption. Please hit the subscribe button. It's a massive help to me. I'm trying to grow the channel, and there's a lot of work goes into putting these podcasts together. And any help that you can give me in doing that is much appreciated. Thanks. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
And so how did that influence you from the point of view of getting into music?
Well, I'd already been playing piano for quite a while. See, the story is that my mum was a really great piano player. She used to play everything from classical music to Art Tatum, Fats Waller, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And we lived in a typical terraced house in Everton in Liverpool. And we had this upright piano there, which was in there, what people used to call the snug, the parlour. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you never lived in there. People lived in the kitchen all the time. They're either in the bedroom or congregating in the kitchen. You only went into the parlour on special occasions. We had a piano in there, and my mum used to play daily on the piano. And being a little tacker, I used to stand there and just watch her hands, you know, and be fascinated by what she was playing. It's just lovely. And then unfortunately, when I was 6, she died.
Oh, wow.
Because everything was indoor, and it was a terrace small place, you know, with the toilet out the back, you know, the backyard and stuff like that. We used to have one of these indoor washing lines that you pulled up. So it was like it had things for ropes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like you pull down to get things to come up and down.
Yeah. And you put the clothes on it and then you pulled it up and then you left it there. And basically the warmth of the kitchen dried out the clothes. Mm-hmm. And she was doing that one day and the rope snapped and the clothesline full of clothes fell on her head and knocked her out. Anyway, sometime after that, she started getting headaches and fainting and all that kind of stuff. And it was determined that she had a tumour on the brain. Whether it was cancer or not, I'll never know. But she went into hospital to have it removed and they stuffed up the operation and she died.
No.
So anyway, that was a really, really significant point in my life. Not only because I'd lost my mum, but also this music had stopped. There was no piano playing anymore. And I don't know, something inside me just said, I can't stand that. I've got to do
play.
something about it.
Yeah.
So I sat myself at the piano and started teaching myself to play from about 6 or 7.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
Not at that stage, no.
Okay.
I was the only child. I just started, you know, as you do. Bang, 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 bang. And then gradually being able to pick out melodies. Mm-hmm. And then I'd hear something on the radio and I'd go to the piano and try and pick it out on the piano. My dad helped me a little bit. Because
Could he play?
He didn't play the piano, but he played a bit of guitar, but he had a bit of musical knowledge, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and he had a few little tricks on the piano that he could show me to kind of get both hands going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from the time I was 6 to by the time I saw the Beatles for the first time at 13, which is, 7 years or something like that, I'd developed my skills on the piano a fair bit. Mm. I knew stuff. I knew something was going on in Liverpool. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I knew this stuff was going on, you know? Mm-hmm. And I really want to check it out more and maybe be part of it. I think seeing the Beatles that time just flipped me over the edge. I said, right, this is what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also wanted to play guitar at that stage, but I didn't have one and I couldn't afford one, so I was basically stuck with the piano. But I went away from that gig, and not long after that, with a few local mates, we formed our first group called the Time Beats.
Ah.
Yeah.
So that was school friends?
No, they were just local friends.
Okay.
They were people who lived in the neighbourhood who actually
Played music?
or played instruments.
Was there music at school for you?
Not so much, no.
So it was more about the people you knew in your local neighbourhood that played music, and you played music with those people?
Yeah, we had local neighbourhood. We had people who were already playing in groups, and I could see them loading up their vans with their equipment and stuff like that. Everybody used to drive comma vans back then, you know.
I don't suppose you would have seen too many people loading pianos.
No, you wouldn't. The Vox Continental was still to come out. Nobody had a Fender Rhodes or anything like that back then, you know. Yeah. I think the closest to an electric piano at that time would have been the Hohner Pianette.
Hohner, who were famous for making mouth organs?
Melodicas and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay.
But, and it was a really tinky thing, you know. So I was basically relying on there being pianos, not just in houses, but at venues too, which there was back then.
Yeah.
Venues all had pianos. Even the Cavern had a piano. Or sometimes they had an electric organ. You know, Hammond or a Lowry organ or something like that you could play on. So we started out doing gigs. I think we did our first gig when I was about 14 or 15 at a place called the Oddle Park Conservative Club, and we got 10 shillings.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Between us.
Wow. And you obviously were playing piano.
I was.
Because I know that you play a lot of other instruments. Like I know you've played bass and you play guitar.
Yeah.
What brought about learning bass and guitar?
I think just a necessity to get the music out of me, you know. I was, although I played piano and I had lots of idols that I had at the time. I mean, starting in rock and roll, you know, you couldn't avoid Jerry Lee Lewis or people like that on the
Big Showman, put the foot up on the piano.
Yeah, which I used to do, yeah. Fell over a few times because I wasn't tall enough.
Oh, wow.
You know, most of the groups, as music went on through the 60s, and it kind of went from rock and roll to pop to rock, there was an awful lot of emphasis always put on guitar, you know. And I really felt like I needed to add that to my arsenal, yeah. And a bit later on, as part of playing guitar, just 2 strings less on playing bass. There was all different ways. I mean, I've tried, what have I tried throughout my life? I played flute for a while, saxophone.
Because they're very different. That's a very different technical ability too, particularly with saxophone. Well, flute and saxophone, they're very similar, I guess.
Well, they both require an embouchure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with saxophone, with the reed, whereas with the flute, you blow across the mouthpiece, you know? So, yeah, they're different things. And you know, it's come in handy over the years. There's been certain records that I've been able to utilise that kind of stuff off. Kind of like Brian Jones in the Rolling Stones, you know? He kind of wasn't satisfied with just playing the guitar. He had to try out all these different instruments, you know?
Yeah.
And I've utilised them over the years. I played sax with Screaming Lord Sutch and the Savages. I've played flute in quite a few Australian bands since I've been in Australia, and singing too, and tap dancing if you want. whatever it takes to get the music out.
I know that you played with Gerry and the Pacemakers.
Yeah.
And they were a big thing.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I'd kind of in Liverpool in the 60s, there was a kind of a hierarchy of musicians. There was the experienced guys who'd been around since the late 50s or so, and then there was the up-and-comers throughout the 60s, and I was kind of one of those because I wasn't quite old enough, you know, with the other guys. So I kind of had to go through this process of, I suppose, making a name for myself in Liverpool by going through various bands and each time getting in a better band and then a better band and then a better band and then doing other things music related that kind of where people knew who you were. At one stage I worked at Frank Hesse's, the music shop in Liverpool, where everybody bought their instruments, including the Beatles. So people knew me from that too. I eventually got to the stage where I was being called on a lot to do different things and even go down to London and do some sessions.
Okay, recording stuff.
Yeah.
Was there a recording studio in Liverpool?
There was a couple of small ones. Yeah.
But I guess back in those days, they would have been, just 2-track? They'd got multi-track yet? Or
2-track, I think. Ham Records had 4-track. But yeah, they were very basic. There was nothing on the level that you would find in London. So if you wanted to do decent session work, you had to kind of, drive down to London or get the train down to London and do some session work there and then back to Liverpool.
How far away is Liverpool from London?
About 180 miles.
Okay, so it's a nice long train trip.
Yeah. It's an even worse. No, it wasn't so bad a drive back then, but, if you had a rickety old car, you could hope that you'd get there, but you couldn't guarantee getting home because you might break down on the motorway, So I got to the stage, and Gerry, after the initial rush of success of the Pacemakers, decided for a short while he was going to go into musicals, and he starred in a musical called Charlie Girl in London. And then after that finished, he decided he wanted to go back to gigging, to performing. And somebody must have recommended me, because by this stage I was kind of like,
You've made a name for yourself.
Made a name for, at least in Liverpool anyway. Yeah. And I just finished with a band the day before. A band I'd been in that was a really good band. It was called Highly Inflammable, and we were kind of like a jazz rock kind of band.
Okay.
If you can call it that, it would have been in the very early days, where rock musicians adding jazz elements into it. And we did a lot of touring and a lot of concerts and a lot of supports for big name progressive bands, But anyway, we just finished the day after, and I'm kind of sitting at home. My wife at the time was at work, and I'm thinking, oh, what the hell am I going to do now? And the phone rings. The voice said, "Is that Joe McLaughlin?" And I knew the voice instantly. I thought, oh my God. I said, "Yeah, speaking." He said, "All right, Joe, this is Gerry Marsden."
Oh, wow.
He said, "I need a piano player. Would you be free to do it?" I said, yeah.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So I went and met up with Gerry, and because I'd started playing piano at such a young age and teaching myself and picking out tunes, I developed what we call really big ears, where you can hear something on the radio and then instantly go and be able to kind of find it on your instrument.
And you'd been listening to your mum play when you were young too, so would have helped develop your ear as well.
Yeah. So I went over to his house, and he said, do you know much of my stuff? And I sat down and I rattled off, "You'll Never Walk Alone, How'd You Do It? I Like It, Ferry Cross the Mersey." And he said, "Right, okay, you're in." He said, "Next week we're going to Australia."
Oh, like that?
Like that.
Oh, man.
Just like that.
Did he say for how long you'd be going to Australia?
Oh, for a month tour, yeah.
I guess at that stage too, going to Australia, that would have been on a boat or by plane?
No, by plane. Back then it was 707s, Boeing 707s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like getting a bus, because it would have to stop everywhere.
Oh, for fuel?
Probably, or to take on passengers. Probably for fuel, yeah. Yeah, so you'd take off from London, and then you'd stop at Frankfurt, and then you'd stop at Rome, and then you'd stop at Bahrain, and then you'd stop somewhere in India, and then Kuala Lumpur or Hong Kong, and then Singapore, and eventually you get to Australia. So it took ages to fly to Australia then.
Well, would you stop very long in each place?
No, it was just transit, really.
Transit.
Yeah. But long enough to...
So you would have gotten off the plane incredibly tired.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Because, I know what it's like to fly from here to the UK, and the whole concept of jet lag. It's, even in this day and age, that's a long, long trip.
Yeah. We were fortunate in the fact that I was flying with Gerry, and I think we were flying on an early version of Singapore Airlines.
Okay.
And they were lovely. And we were flying somewhere over Europe, and one of the air hostesses came down, and she took one look at Gerry, and she said, "Oh, Jelly and the Pacemakers." And from then on, we got
special treatment.
Oh, special treatment. We got flowing champagne and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So not only were we very tired when we got to Australia, but probably very pissed too.
Maybe one way of helping ward off the jet lag, maybe.
Yeah.
Could you hear? Is it jet lag or is it hungover?
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like an awfully long way anyway. I mean, I've been backwards and forwards.
So obviously
since.
coming to Australia to do gigs. And how did that go?
It went really well. We landed in Perth. We did some concerts there and then flew to Brisbane, then Sydney, and then Melbourne.
Had Ferry Across the Mersey been a big hit by that stage?
It had.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were very familiar with the Gerry and the Pacemakers records, which had done really well out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember that song. I don't remember personally remember many of the others.
Yeah.
Was there, what other hits did Gerry have?
The first one was called I Like It. I like it. I like it.
Oh, okay.
It was really pop.
I probably have heard them.
And then there was How Do You Do It? How do you do what you do to me?
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the big one was You'll Never Walk Alone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you sing those melodies, like I recognise those things from when I was young.
Yeah, so he was really well known, and he'd had hits out here. So it all went really well, and basically my life just changed because it was my first time touring internationally, basically getting out of England. I mean, I've been overseas before, little trips to Europe and Ireland.
So I guess you must have really enjoyed Australia enough because obviously you ended up moving here.
Well, I did. I went back to England, and basically the Pacemakers were solidified, as a unit. And
So you would have toured for quite a while with the band?
Yeah, toured quite a while and recorded. Yeah, we used to do. I still made records with Gerry and the Pacemakers.
Oh, cool.
And we used to do a lot of the BBC. Had special programs where they'd get you in to record live. We'd usually go down to the BBC studios at Maida Vale in London. You'd play your hits or whatever, and they'd get played on various BBC programs like the John Peel Sessions or Saturday Club or various other things.
So radio and TV or just radio?
Just radio. Just radio, yeah. And many years later, Parlophone started reissuing albums called Live at the BBC. And the Beatles were one of the first to have the Beatles live at the BBC, where all their BBC tracks were put onto an album. And eventually, Gerry and the Pacemakers had a live at the BBC, so I'm playing on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Pretty.
And so we toured, did a Merseybeat, a British invasion revival tour of the United States, stuff like that. Lots of stuff going on.
Touring the States, what was that like?
Eye-opening.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, the only thing I'd really seen about America is like everybody else on the television shows and stuff like that. But seeing the diversity between, say, New York to the Midwest to down south and over to California was just, they were all like different countries.
In what era would that have been? Late 60s? Early 70s?
Early 70s, very early 70s. I mean, I'd been to Australia, I'd been around Europe with Gerry, but...
America was a different animal?
America was definitely a different animal,
What size venues were you playing?
Oh, one venue, we played Madison Square Garden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Cow Palace in San Francisco, like big auditoriums. It was part of a package.
Oh, the British invasion type vibe.
Yeah, it was part of a package tour.
Because that was a really big thing, I guess, back then too, particularly with people like Eric Clapton taking on American music and making it popular for Americans, which was an interesting concept. Did you ever get to see Eric Clapton play?
Oh, yeah.
A similar era, I guess.
Yeah.
What about other English musicians? Is that one of those things where you got to see most of the great English musicians?
Yeah, well,
Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah, well, you could. Yeah, I did. I saw him at the Isle of Wight Festival.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you could. You pick up-
And I guess that what
They were
sort of
there.
influence would those sort of people have had on your career, do you think?
On my career, I don't know, but on me musically, you always find takeaway bits when you see somebody. You know, you're not them, or you're not going to emulate them, or be like them, or play like them, but there's always going to be some takeaway thing like attitude or how they conduct themselves, how they get their music off the edge of the stage to the audience, how they project. So there was lots of things that you could learn from those guys just by that, you know.
When you were touring and working with Gerry, were you still based in Liverpool?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
What prompted the move out of Liverpool?
Well, that was to come to Australia. So I was based in Liverpool, but we were touring, and I would also be going down to London to do sessions at places like Abbey Road and Trident and Olympic and places like that, doing sessions, recordings with some of the pop stars at the time, like Sandy Shaw and Clodagh Rogers and Paul McCartney.
So you obviously did some recording for Paul McCartney. What was that like?
Well, I didn't actually. I happened to be in the studio at the same time.
Did you get to meet him personally?
A few times, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were they good experiences?
Oh, yeah, they were fine. They were just normal experiences, yeah. No amazing stories to tell, really.
No, but
Just-
I guess it's one of those things that sometimes they say it's maybe it's not a good idea to meet your heroes. Maybe I guess it's that thing. Yeah, some people are very accommodating and open, and some people are very standoffish. And did you find him very open?
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. But I know what you mean. There are people like that.
If you got to be super famous, there would almost be an overload of people in your face wanting to meet you and stuff. So I can imagine being the type of person to say, like, back off, I've had enough, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It seems to be a very Liverpool thing, though, that open.
Well, it is, I suppose. I mean, the one major thing about Liverpool is its sense of humour, people's sense of humour. And they won't worry too much about bringing you down, you know. They'll tell the truth, and they'll tell things as they are,
Oh,
you know. And you got to take it or get very hurt. And I think growing up in Liverpool, you got to learn how to take it, you know.
grow a bit of a thicker skin.
Yeah, but the sense of humour, there's a saying, why do so many comedians come out of Liverpool? You've got to have a sense of humour to live there.
What was Liverpool famous for, apart from the Beatles and music?
Football.
Football?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the two teams, Liverpool and Everton. Also, on a more commercial level for its docks.
Oh, okay.
So it was the major seaport dealing with trade with the United States. It's also where a lot of the original slaves left from to be taken to the States. Apart from that, yeah, the football teams, Liverpool and Everton, yeah.
Football is a huge thing in the UK and throughout Europe. Did you ever play? Was that sport one of those things that touched your life?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, at grammar school, I went to grammar school, sorry about that.
Is that different from normal school?
Well,
Is your grammar very good?
It's not too bad.
Not like mine.
But there used to be a system in England called the 11 plus exams. And basically when you got to the end of primary school, you sat this 11 plus exam, and how well you did it determined what stream you were going to go to. So there was technical high schools, there was just your ordinary kind of common or garden high school, and there were grammar schools, which were a bit of a higher level. I must have fluked it. I did well in my 11 plus, and I went to a grammar school. So that's where you have to wear the uniform and the tie and the hat. So I was a college pudding. That's what they used to call me in my neighbourhood, because I was the only one who got to go to a grammar school.
Oh, wow.
So they'd all wait for me to come home from school, get off the bus, and they all shout, "College pudding!" Anyway, it was a rugby school, actually, being a grammar school, you know. But we used to rebel against it, and we formed our own football league there. So we used to play football all the time.
Oh, okay.
And I even, when I was 16 or so, I had thoughts of maybe going and doing a trial for Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
But music took over.
What prompted the move to Australia? What brought that about?
Probably after having toured out here a couple of times. It got to the stage in the mid-70s where the run with Gerry and the Pacemakers was coming to just a normal conclusion.
Yeah.
You know, it was time to do something different. I'd always been into other forms of music. I wanted to expand. But that coincided with what was going on in England at the time. There was terrible things going on with the IRA attacks, with the government. There was a 3-day working week. There was power shortages. And Liverpool at the time could seem gloomy enough at the best of times. But with all this stuff, it was kind of like, oh, get me out of here. I'd actually, from the second trip out to Australia, I'd actually brought back an Australian girlfriend with me.
Ah.
Her name was Julie.
Ah.
I met her. She was singing with an Australian band called The Vibrants.
Okay.
I started thinking about the expansive blue skies and the golden beaches and the fresh food and the sunshine and this open space, not like it is now on the Gold Coast, but the open space.
No, it's changed here a lot, hasn't it?
And it really appealed to me, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. Just go on spec, just to see how it works out. So I got myself and Julie a one-way ticket on a Qantas jet. And we flew out and we landed in Melbourne. I was going through customs and the customs officer said to me, "G'day, sir." He said, "How long do you plan on staying?" And I said, "Maybe for good." And he said, "Fine." And he stamped my passport with a resident visa.
Oh, wow.
And in I walked.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. Easy as that. Easy as pie.
Wow.
Maybe if I'd been from a different country, it would have been different. But because I was a Pom, then I just walked in. And I thought, what am I going to do now? And fortunately, when I'd been out with Gerry, I'd made musical contacts. And Melbourne in the 70s was the hub of music in Australia. The studios, the venues, the bands. It was just booming. And I got in touch with them to let them know I was in Australia. And about a week after that, one of the friends I'd made, a guy named Buddy England, who used to be an Australian pop star in the 60s, he was working as A&R for Astor Records. And he phoned me up and he said, "Joe," because I was still called Joe then, "I'm putting together a house band for all, you know, for all the records. Would you like to be in it?" Yep. Yeah. So I was with John Robinson and Garth Thompson from The Strangers. That was the rhythm section.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great rhythm section.
I know. And we started making all these, being the band for all these artists on Astor Records.
Okay, so that would have included quite a long list of names then you would have played for then.
Yeah.
When you were doing those type of sessions, how would they go? Was it someone brought you sheet music chord charts, or did they play you a demo?
Various methods. Sometimes just chord charts. Sometimes we were sent things to listen to beforehand, so we had an idea of what we had a lot of freedom too, to be able, because we were all such experienced musicians. We had a lot of freedom to kind of add our own input too. You know, if we felt that some little thing was going to make it sound better or catchier, then we had the freedom to do that.
Did you have different producers, or was it the same producer all the time?
Same producer, buddy. Yeah.
What sort of input would the producer have?
Normal production, so coming up with ideas, making sure everything sounded right, making sure we got paid.
But for the most part, the musos themselves would work out the parts and go from there.
Yeah.
And if something needed to be tweaked, the producer would put his hand in and say...
In conjunction with the artist.
Oh, okay.
You know, you say, like, are you happy with this? Are you happy if we do it this way? What do you think of this? And stuff like that. And in most cases, they wouldn't have a clue what they wanted, so they'd be quite happy with what you suggested, you know?
Okay.
There was one young guy who was making his first records. His name was Benjamin Hugg. And he had a hit single out of what we did called Thank God You're Here With Me. It's a long time ago. It's 50 years ago, you know?
Wow.
And he was pretty green, so he was quite happy to have band suggestions as to where things should go, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Is there memories of other songs that you can remember that were hits on radio?
There was one by a group called The New Dream, called Schlick Schlack Boom Boom, I think it was, or something like that. Yeah. And Buddy himself had a record called Carolina. A few other things. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to remember.
So, I was just going to say, so how long did you do that for, and how many songs do you think you played on during that period of time?
I don't know, dozens. Yeah. Plus, I was making my own records too, because myself and Julie, who was a singer, obviously, right before we left England, we went round doing some duo work, and we went and did a tour of Germany and Holland and stuff like that. So when we came here, we were pretty primed to do some gigs, so we started doing some duo gigs. And this is a funny story. There used to be, you know, like you have Australia's Got Talent or all that kind of stuff now.
Yep.
There used to be a regular program on Channel 9 called New Faces.
Yep.
Do you remember New Faces?
I do. Stuart Newton hosted it for a while.
Well, when we did it, it was Dennis, what was his name? Dennis Wilson. Yeah. Anyway, I said to Julie, just to kind of, I always like to think of things to get people, to get people to notice you.
Yeah.
You know? It comes from my journalistic days, which I'll tell you about later. But the publicity kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said to her, oh, why don't we go on New Faces? And she said, no. No. She thought it was the most embarrassing thing to go on New Faces, you know?
Oh, wow.
Because we weren't New Faces, you know, but I thought it was being on...
Great publicity, great marketing.
Yeah, and on television, lots of people get to see, you know.
Yeah.
So we went on and we did a heat, and we won the heat. And then we went on the grand final. We won that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you won New Faces.
Yes. Yeah. And out of that, we got a recording contract with W&G, so we started making our own singles with W&G Records.
Okay.
And this is in conjunction with doing all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the first record we made, there was a thing I wrote called Oko Poco. Don't ask me to sing it. And it got in the top 10 in Melbourne. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there were all these things happening to kind of get life.
So you're busy.
I was busy.
You were busy.
I was really busy. I was
Yeah.
really busy. And so the initial idea of coming to Australia and on spec and checking it out kind of started to slowly fade away the more I dug in to the music in Melbourne, you know? And, well, I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking your journalistic days.
Yeah,
Obviously, you spent some time doing journalism.
I did. I did, indeed.
That out of your grammar school education.
Out of my grammar school education, I was, I'd left home. I left home fairly young. I left home about 16 because I wasn't happy. I won't go into why, but I wasn't happy. And I'd got myself a flat close to the city centre. And I used to walk into the city a lot from where I lived. And I was walking down a street called Bold Street one day, which is a pretty big thoroughfare in Liverpool. And I walked past this building. We have a daily newspaper in Liverpool called the Liverpool Echo, and we used to have a morning paper called the Daily Post. But I walked past this building and I saw the sign, Liverpool Weekly News. I thought, I used to write things at school. You know, I used to do a lot of writing. I was a bit between things at the time. And I thought, I wonder if I might go in and ask them if they want to take on a cub reporter, you know? Yeah. So anyway, I went in, went up the stairs. One of the guys there showed me into the office and showed me into the editor. And I said, I'd like to be a reporter. And he kind of laughed, you know. But he could see, I don't know what he could see. He obviously saw something about me, some determination or something like that. And he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll send you out on an assignment. You come back, write it up, give it to me. I'll check it out and I'll let you know. So I did.
So it's basically a test.
A test.
Have you got what it takes?
Yeah. So he did. He sent me out, and I forget what the assignment was. It's too long ago. But anyway, I came back, and they gave me one of those old, big, clunky Underwood typewriters, and with my 2 fingers, I typed it up, and I made sure my grammar
was correct.
was perfect. But I tried to also do it from a musician's point of view, where you're trying to. One of the big things I learned is you get people's attention at the start by what you say at the start. If you've got their attention, then they're willing to read through the rest. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I put all those ingredients to it, and I took it in and I handed it to him, and I went outside and sat there. And he came out and he said, "Come on in, Joe." He said, "Look, this is really good." He said, "Yeah, we'll start you." Yeah, because they actually needed a reporter at that time. They had a few, but they actually needed somebody else. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So he took me on. So
Right place, right time.
Yeah. So I started working for the newspaper. Yeah, and reporting on all manner of things, from music. I used to go to football games and report on them. I used to go to functions, which is another funny thing, because I lived on my own. And so did our photographer, John Callan, his name was, God bless him. And we weren't very good at looking after ourselves, you know, cooking and stuff like that. So what we really used to look forward to was getting sent to functions. You know, you go somewhere, there's some international VIP coming, you know. And so they'd
eat some nice food.
They'd lay everything on. So when we'd get to the job to do the reporting on the function, but the very first thing we'd head for would be the buffet table, stuff ourselves with food. Oh yeah, I'll have one, and then go and do the interviewing and the reporting and taking the photographs. Yeah, we used to look forward to that because that would be our main meal for the day. Yeah, so I suppose you could say I was doing day jobs while still playing at night time in Liverpool.
You've been a busy man throughout most of your life then, really?
I have. Yeah, until COVID.
Yes, well, COVID was an interesting story. So how long did you spend in Melbourne?
I was there about 10 years.
10 years?
I was there about 10 years. So me and Julie didn't last, unfortunately. Just a a difference in lifestyles. And so I stayed on in Melbourne. At that point in time, I could have gone back to England. You know what I mean?
Because you had the visa you had was permanent residence.
Yeah, permanent.
But you hadn't become an Australian citizen.
Not at that point.
No.
Not at that point. I am now, but not at that point, no. But I was on a permanent resident visa, so I could stay as long as I wanted. I could have gone back to England, but I decided to keep going. And then an opportunity came up to join a band called Panther, who are a well-known Melbourne band that were kind of a mixture between rock and Latin and jazz, I suppose.
You like your jazz music.
Yeah.
But you've played a lot of pop.
Yeah.
Where and how did the jazz come into your playing and
Oh, right from the start.
And so is that something that infused with the pop all the way through?
I've always looked at it from the viewpoint that I'm a jazz musician playing pop, so that can only help make the pop better.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this band Panther had more of a jazz bent to it?
It did, because there was a lot of improvisation involved.
Okay.
Yeah, it was different. It was different. Some people used to call us Australia's Santana or stuff like that, you know. But it was definitely different from your normal pub rock band at the time. But they were popular, and we made records. We toured in support of the Doobie Brothers throughout Australia.
Oh, wow.
Which was great.
Yeah.
We used to get up and join them on stage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It started off in the first concert we did, which I think was Adelaide. And we got really friendly with the guys. And we'd always go up and stand by the side of the stage while they were playing. And when it got towards the end of the show, when they started doing the big things like listen to the music and stuff like that, they called us on. We used to join in with the Doobie Brothers, so the guys would be variously placed around, you know, either singing or playing something. I used to sit myself down next to Michael McDonald.
Oh, whoa.
Which I don't think he was too happy about, but yeah, and that started the trend. So for the entire tour, we did that with the Doobies, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we had this big party at the end of the tour with them, you know, it was great, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time as touring with the Doobies, Panther were playing gigs in cities we were going to. And we were playing one place in Sydney called the East Side Wine Bar. We were playing there. And the lead guitarist of the Doobies turned up with his roadie and sat in with us jamming.
Oh, wow.
What's his name? Simmons.
Pat
Simmons, yeah. So he turned up with his roadie, and he came to jam with us. And there was interaction like that going on, so it was great, you know.
And it would have fit in really is because you were a very improvisational stuff.
He loved that. He loved that he could just come in and jam along, even though he didn't know the tunes. He could jam along with them quite easily, yeah. Which was great. So it was great having Pat Simmons, you know, joining Panther, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did that last for?
The Panther thing lasted till about 1977. And then I was back in Melbourne, and I had various 6 nights a week gigs playing in clubs. Like
Just busy.
Yeah.
Playing all the time, playing.
Like the Top Hat Club in Melbourne. I was there 6 nights a week. And at the same time, I went to work for Yamaha Music Foundation. And they put me on full time. And I was head senior organ lecturer. So I was basically in charge of the other organ teachers at the Yamaha music schools and making sure they were keeping up to scratch and teaching them things and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that's an interesting job to walk into.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Something very different
it was
from what you were doing.
It was very different. It was still music.
Yeah.
But it was something that I could use some of my experience into, you know. And I was there for a while. And then one day we had another band named Daniel. You probably haven't heard of them.
No, I can't say that I have.
They'd just signed a record deal with Image Records, and they were managed by Mike Rudd from Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing a promo thing, and they came to do an in-store promo at a Yamaha store where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And they found out who I was, and they said, why don't you get up and have a jam with us? Which I did. And after that, they said, why don't you join us?
Oh, whoa!
So I did. And I joined them just in time to make their debut album, which was called Last Night in the City.
Okay.
And so I went on the road with Daniel for a year or two. And that was good. That was good fun. We did lots of interesting things. There used to be a program hosted by Lee Simon in Melbourne on Channel 7 called Night Moves, where you'd have bands on, live bands. It was kind of like a more sophisticated countdown, you know. And we used to go on that. And then they had a Night Moves live concert at the Palais Theatre in Melbourne.
It's a great venue, that one too.
Yeah. So there was Skyhooks, the Sports, Jojo Zepp and the Falcons, and Daniel.
What a great lineup.
I know. So, and they...
I used to love the Sports.
And Mushroom put out an album of that concert.
Oh.
Yeah. So at last I eventually got to record for Mushroom, you know? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They were good days. They were good days. But the guys were from Newcastle. You know what it's like touring, where you get to lose all your sense of normality in life sometime? So the guys decided they wanted to move home to Newcastle to settle down, which basically signalled the end of Daniel.
Oh,
but in
okay.
the meantime, we'd made...
Settle down as in families and not tour anymore.
Yeah, not tour. That ended, and so I was at a loose end again, I suppose. So I just started playing jazz. I just started playing with jazz groups and doing jazz gigs.
But when you say you started playing jazz, you like more full-on jazz music?
Yeah, playing with the people who are the real jazz musicians in Melbourne, you know? Yeah, people who weren't playing pop or rock, but played jazz.
And you're playing piano?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, because I was better at jazz on piano than I was on guitar. Guitar's always been a challenge for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a great interesting thing because on a piano, when you play a note, it's that note. It's in that one spot.
Yeah.
And it's very logically laid out, a piano, isn't
Very
it? It's very
logical.
logical.
Very logically
Whereas on a
laid
guitar
out.
is very illogical.
Yeah, I know. Was somebody who said the great dingo in the sky had a bunch of notes and he just dropped them on the neck of the guitar. Wherever they landed, that's where they stayed.
Yeah. That's the weird thing where you can play the same C note in 3 different places or 4 different places depending on how many frets a guitar has.
Yeah. But it's also a shape kind of thing too. Like if I wanted to play a C scale in chords, I can make the shape on the C and just keep that shape and go up. Whereas if I want to do it on the guitar, it's all different shapes.
Well, the other weird thing about a guitar is that you can tune a guitar very different ways too. Yeah, you can tune a guitar to a chord. You can tune it to its traditional tuning. You can tune it in fourths or tune it in fifths. You can tune it in really weird different ways.
Yeah.
Dadgad tuning and
Yeah, you can. Which I've never tried. I've always been just the
standard tuning type.
standard tuning.
At this stage, well, because you're doing piano, what sort of piano were you touring with?
Fender Rhodes.
So they'd pack it up like a suitcase Rhodes.
Yeah. Fender Rhodes.
Were you lugging that yourself, or did you have someone
No,
lugging
we
it
had
for you?
roadies. And
Because they're not a light thing, are they?
no, they're not. They're backbreaking. Yeah. Especially the suitcase.
Yeah.
And I had a Korg synthesizer, and I used to run that through a Fender amp,
Okay.
so I could get the overdrive sound.
Oh.
Yeah, and then a bunch of pedals too, you know, wah and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the Rhodes was my main instrument. Yeah, and touring. But we in all the bands I toured with, of course, we had a road crew.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we never did it ourselves. No, just that was the road crew.
So you're doing jazz, and you're still in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Obviously, at some point you leave Melbourne. When you finally left Melbourne, was that to go to the Gold Coast, or did you go somewhere else first?
No, I came to the Gold Coast. I ended up marrying an Australian lady named Karen. Still not Lisa.
Karen.
Karen. Yeah, the Karen off Facebook, you know. That Karen.
Oh, dear. Poor Karen. She's got a bad name.
She's got a
bad rap.
Yeah. So, and things were changing in Melbourne. You know, things started to change towards the end of the 70s, getting into the 80s. The music was changing and all that stuff. And here folks lived at Tweed Heads. They had a beautiful house in Tweed Heads, you know. They're quite well off. And she said one day, why don't we move up there? And I thought, oh, the sunny Gold Coast, you know, sounds great. So we did. I bought a transit van, Ford Transit van, and we packed everything into it. And we had the transit van, and we had a Holden normal vehicle, Holden Gemini.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And we had all our furniture, and I was still lugging my memorabilia around with me. I've lugged this memorabilia from Liverpool to Melbourne, to the Gold, all over the world with me. All these bits and pieces, you know, the bits and pieces of my life have travelled with me. So anyway, that's all in the van, plus our dog. And Karen's got a loaded full Holden Gemini and our cat. So that's how we travelled from Melbourne up to the Gold Coast.
Wow.
Got to our parents' place, moved in there until we got a place of our own. And within 1 week of arriving here, I had 6 nights a week gig.
Oh, wow. Because there was a lot of work. I'd imagine, what's this? Is this 80s?
Yes, we're into the 80s now.
Yeah.
There was heaps of work.
Oh, heaps of work.
Heaps of work.
I mean, I grew up the 80s was, I was in my 20s for the most part. And when I first started gigging, I remember you could play in a band, and but there were resident gigs, like you play at the Tweed Heads Hotel 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah.
Twin Towns had bands, like there was a band in the morning, a band in the afternoon, a band at night.
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yep. I did a lot of those
A lot of the
gigs.
clubs, like the Seagulls and the Tweed Heads Golf Club, so there was lots and lots and lots of venues, and they all had bands working 5, 6, 7 nights a week.
That's right.
So
There was heaps of work.
Heaps and heaps of work.
Absolutely heaps of work. Throughout the 80s, I went from one 6-night-a-week gig to another.
Yeah. And they all paid really quite well.
They paid really well.
Yeah.
You know, you do a residency for a year or two, and then they'd want to change the band. And next week you'd be in another venue 6 nights a week, you know, and you'd be there for another year or two, and then on and on and on it went. And I went through the Seagulls thing, and Twin Towns, Gold Coast International Hotel, Rolls Club.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so many places. Yeah. And at the same time as I was doing that, Lisa, who is my wife and has been for the last 37 years, was doing the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's a great singer.
Yeah.
Great singer. Is that what attracted you to her initially?
Yeah, the fact that I thought she was beautiful too. but yeah, she's a great singer.
Yeah.
Great singer. Great. And she played piano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
These gigs that you're doing, are you still playing piano, or are you playing other instruments as well?
I was getting booked mainly on piano. It was really hard to kind of say, no, I want to play some guitar. No, you're playing piano.
Because I guess back then there was a lot of piano bar type sort of stuff, which virtually doesn't exist anymore.
No, there was. All the venues had pianos. Like when we were playing, we used to do 6-7 nights a week at the Gold Coast International Hotel. I did that with a bass player named Ian Betters.
Yep.
And they had this beautiful grand piano, and that's what they wanted me to play, you know? Yeah.
What a chore.
I know. By a waterfall. Playing Chick Corea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
You did that for a long while, but you got into education as well. How did that come about?
Oh, that happened, well, this went on for a long while, and I was vacillating between these 6 nights a week jobs and occasionally putting together little bands that would do things. And we had myself and Lisa and a drummer named Al Cesario had a trio for a while, and we were the house band for a TV program called Gold Coast Review. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the theme for that too, and we used to they'd get artists in, and we'd be the band that backed them on camera, you know. Mm-hmm. So there was all these different kind of things that were going on, but throughout the 90s, there again you could see more change coming. You could see a decline in the gigs. Mm-hmm. You could see technology playing a bigger role. I mean, one thing that really swung it for me once was I walked into Jupiter's Casino, and there was somebody singing there, and they were pretending to play the keyboard, but it was actually recorded. Mm. And I thought, is that really what it's come down to? You know?
Yeah.
Lisa had been asked to go and teach jazz vocals at Queensland Conservatorium. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, maybe it's time I got degreed up, you know, and maybe get into that area.
Because you'd done the teaching thing with the Yamaha.
All along I'd done teaching. I'd done the teaching thing with the Yamaha. I'd done private teaching. I've done teaching at music shops. Mm-hmm. So there was always an element of teaching coming into it.
Yeah. You went and did the degree and...
I got degreed up. I did my Bachelor of Music, and then I did a higher education degree. Mm-hmm. And I started working at the Con. But because I'd got more proficient on guitar at this stage, and because I'd done my degree in jazz guitar.
Oh.
Yeah. I made sure I did. I thought, somewhere along
Don't stick with what you know. Let's go and do something else.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I thought, somewhere along the line, I'm going to play my bloody guitar, you know. So I'll do my degree in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I did. And so I got hired basically teaching jazz guitar at the Con.
Wow.
Which eventually became guitar and keyboards, yeah. I was there for 25 years.
Wow.
Teaching in the Bachelor of Music degree.
And is that something you really enjoyed doing?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I mean, you can't avoid the institutionalization of certain things. But over a 25-year period, you can see lots of change too.
Yeah.
You know? And it became a bit disappointing for me in the latter stages where I could see the quantity over quality.
The need for the institution to make money.
Yes. Yeah. Which is...
Financial realities of everything, I suppose. Creeps into everything.
Which it creeps into everything, especially tertiary education, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I only retired this year.
Wow. Mm. So, I know that I've had you in the studio doing a whole bunch of stuff, and you've done a reinvigorated version of Ferry Cross the Mersey.
Yeah.
That went really, really well.
I thought it went pretty well too.
With a band called the Jazz Kings.
That's right.
Yeah.
I thought it went pretty well because considering most of it was a first take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still gigging with those guys?
Yeah, I mean... The gigs,
but you're playing guitar with them now?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, I'm still the keyboard player, but I insisted on playing guitar as well. This is the story of my life. I insist on playing my guitar too. I'm going to go home if I can't bring my guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, still playing for them. I mean, there's not a lot of gigs. Not a lot of gigs for most bands these days.
What would you say, looking back from over the whole spectrum of the things that you've done, would be an absolute highlight of all the things that you've done?
Of all the things that I've done. Well, definitely being in Gerry and the Pacemakers.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of like
Madison Square Gardens?
that kind of thing.
Any particular gig with Gerry and the Pacemakers that really stands out?
Not really, I suppose. It's more the recording side of things. The fact that I got to record You'll Never Walk Alone with Gerry and the Pacemakers.
Yeah.
Having a couple of hit records, including with the Jazz Kings.
Yep.
The other one would be writing the theme song for the Australian theme song for the 2000 Sydney Olympics.
Oh, wow. So that's quite a thing to do.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
There was an athlete. He wanted to get in the kayaking team. His name is Shane Monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
He thought, well, if I can't make it, I want to be involved in the Olympics somehow. So I'll write a song. But he didn't have the wherewithal to kind of do it all on his own, so he heard of me, and I wasn't living too far away at the time. So he got in touch with me and said, would I help him? Would I write a song with him? So I did, but he had most of the lyrics. I completed the lyrics, and I came up with the music. It was called Rise, and we did a really good demo of it, and we got a really good singer in to sing it and stuff like that. And then basically, he sent it off to the organising committee of the Sydney Games. Sent it off and said, "What do you think of this as one of your songs?" Because they were going to, they were called SOCOG, Sydney Olympic Organising Committee, or whatever it is. They were going to be putting out an Olympic album, and basically the idea was to get a song on the album. So we sent the song off to them and waited a while, and eventually they got back and they said, "Yeah, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get Marcia Hines to sing it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it had a few tweaks and stuff like that, a few different things done to it. But Marcia recorded it, and it went on the album.
Ah.
And then the next thing that happened was they played the entire album to the Australian team. And they said to them, which of these tracks makes you feel more...
Uplifted.
Uplifted,
Yes.
yeah, that's the word, uplifted. Which of these tracks makes you find the most... And they picked ours.
Oh, wow.
So it became the official Australian team theme song.
Wow.
And got played everywhere.
That's awesome.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere throughout Sydney, and all the airplanes, radio stations, everything. Marcia's put out a couple of albums since. She put out a diva album called Diva, and just recently an album called Still Shining. Mm-hmm. And each time Rise is on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, so I keep getting...
Some royalties from that?
Yeah, 10 cents here and 15 cents there. And
I guess that's another question. How have you found music for you financially? Has it been something that has served you well? Has there been tough times?
Yeah. I think financially, most of the time it's been a struggle.
Okay.
Because even when you're doing well, or a band's doing well, the normal expenses, of living expenses, there's never seems to be enough to fully cover that, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've earned a fair bit of money over the time, but I've also had 3 marriages, given away 2 houses.
It's a hard thing to recover from.
I haven't been the best manager of money. It never seemed to kind of really, as long as I could get by, you know, and have a roof over my head and food to eat and a car to drive and somebody by my side, it was
enough.
It was enough. Yeah, it was enough. Yeah, I never kind of aimed for being rich or property or stuff like that.
Having recorded so much.
Yeah.
In all those recordings, do you get credit on those recordings?
Yeah.
What sort of financial remuneration would you get from those recordings?
Well, hardly anything these days. Yeah. I mean, you used to get, especially when they had album covers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You used to get credit. But then you'd get the session fee. Mm-hmm. And it was only in certain situations that you get residuals.
Okay. So the session fee was the main thing.
The session fee was the main thing, plus getting your name on the album.
Yeah.
So maybe other people would see your name and want to use you.
Build up the profile.
Yeah. I think that used to be the main reward.
Out of the writing for the Sydney Olympic song, did that come with any royalties?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got a fair bit out of that, actually. Yeah, because it was played everywhere, everywhere at the time. And so there were performance and radio and all that kind of stuff, well before streaming. So we got a decent royalty for every time it was played.
Yeah, I guess streaming has really made a significant difference to songwriters. Is that something that's affected you in any way?
Yeah, it's made me not want to do it because unless there's something in particular that I'm writing for, or some deadline, or some particular thing that I need to get out, just songwriting for the sake of it these days, it's who's going to hear it, and I'm not going to get anything for it. I got a total surprise the other week because I'm used to dribs and drabs coming in from APRA and stuff like that. There's something, you'll go in your bank account and it'll be like $1.57 or something like that. And APRA put I don't know, it was way over $100. And so I phoned them up and I said, what did I get $100 for? Because I was amazed.
Yep.
I mean, even Spotify doesn't, unless you sell millions of, you get millions of things, you don't get $100. I said, what did I get $100 for? And they said, it's some song you wrote a long time ago that's been played a lot in Thailand, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the system actually works. Like it
works.
It's made it through to you.
I got this through from the Thailand performing rights to Afro, who then passed it on to me. Yeah. So it does work.
The system works.
Yeah, the system works.
If you were a young person starting out now, what advice would you give that person as far as making a career in music these days?
Apart from don't. To do all the things that you need to do to be self-sufficient and to be able to kind of multi-skilled, to take on as many skills as you can. I mean, it used to be that you just used to have to play your instrument really well.
Yep.
And even a lot of people didn't do that and still made it famous,
That.
But you need to add so much extra to that. You need to be tech savvy and you need to know how to promote yourself. And yeah, there's so many things that you need to do these days now. But it still all boils down to your musicality. Be the best musician that you can.
And is there something in being unique, standing out?
Oh, absolutely.
But not so unique that people think you're weird?
Well, even that
That's a strange one.
Even that doesn't seem to matter these days, does it? The weirder you are.
Well, I guess it's one of those things that's always been an interesting thing. Like if you go back to David Bowie in the 70s, and it served quite a few people in many ways to being radically different.
Boy George, yeah. Even back to, like I said before, I played sax with Screaming Lord Sutch. He was different, Used to come on stage in a coffin and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that sounds very Spinal Tap.
Yeah. So there's always been these eccentrics who manage to stick out.
Yeah.
Or even a group image that sticks out, like when the Police first started. There were 3 blonde-haired punks.
Yeah.
And that was
different.
But it was perfect for the times.
Yeah.
And the music they were playing was perfect for the times. This cross between punk music and reggae, you know, it was great. And so I think luck has a lot to do with it too. You know, right place, right time.
Yeah, I mean, you've had a lot of things happen in your life that where, like you say, you walked through a door and said, hey, I want to do this, and someone's like, you're in the right place. It's a lot of it is luck, but I think to some degree you make your own luck. Like if you're not ready or prepared when you step through that door, it's not going to happen for you.
No.
You need to have the skills and the talent to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, you do. And you need to go about that the right way too. The thing I used to impress on students at the con was the fact that they could actually learn the same thing and not go to university at all, but follow the same principles, which the old masters did, which is listen, transcribe. Listen, transcribe. So you hear something, you listen to it deeply, deep listening, and then work it out in your instrument. You don't necessarily have to write it down, but work it out. Listen, transcribe, whether it's solos or songs. Build your ears, yeah. And through the process of doing that, you just naturally become a much better musician. Yeah. And you know, there's heaps.
I think one of the things that's different these days, and I don't know if you would agree, there is a lot of musicians who work on their own.
Yeah.
But I think the real learning when you're a musician is to be able to work with other musicians. Is that something that when you're teaching at the con shone through, or is it?
Yeah, interpersonal relationships too. Yeah, I used to run a lot of ensembles at the con, and getting them to work together was one of the tasks. Yeah, that they would learn from.
Because it is a very, I mean, music is one of those, I guess, art forms where it can be a solo instrument, but more often than not, you're a part of an ensemble.
Yes, a part of a team.
Part of a team.
In actual fact, you're part of a jigsaw puzzle, and the pieces have to fit together exactly to make the proper whole.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so that's listening, and it's having empathy and humility within an ensemble situation.
Yeah.
All those things too are really part of it.
Yeah.
How many bands have you seen split up because a lack of those things, you know?
That's true. Well, at that point, I would like to say thank you very much for spending some time with me today, Jose.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I didn't realise I was going to talk so much.
I'm going to put some links down below for people that are watching so they can access some of the stuff that Jose's done, or most of it, hopefully, including the Jazz Kings stuff.
Yeah.
I might intersperse some of it in amongst us speaking, even.
Why not?
If I can do that.
Why not?
And thank you very much for sticking around and watching. And hopefully we'll see you on the next podcast.
Bye. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much, Jose.